This is Kate Swanell for the MJA, and today we're talking to Professor Stephen Leeder, the Editor-in-Chief, and we're talking about the 1st of September issue. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Kate.
This issue contains the open letter to the Prime Minister about climate change and including it on the agenda of the G20 meeting. Tell me how that letter came about.
Came about because Tony McMichael, who's been a strong advocate about health and the environment for 30, 40 years almost, he's an epidemiologist, public health person, thought it was really remiss of the G20 not to have climate change listed as one of the topics for discussion. The reasons for that are that climate change and macroeconomics intersect. In other words, there's a serious risk to the economic well-being of countries posed by climate change, but more importantly from our perspective, I guess, as a medical journal, it poses a serious hazard to human health, all the way from increasing prevalence or incidence of some infectious diseases through to creating mass migrations of people whose country, say like Bangladesh, could easily be inundated if the ocean levels rise substantially. So he felt it's time, especially given some negative media coverage that came from the Prime Minister's office and the Canadian Prime Minister, who got a lot to gain from the oil sands of Alberta and so on, said, no, we don't want to confuse the pure economics with human issues, and we don't want to cloud it with pseudoscience of climate change, as though it is not pseudoscience, an actual reality. But so it's a bit of a protest against what looks like a very anti-intellectual approach to climate change, and some naive belief that if you can just talk about economics, you don't need to talk about climate change. Yeah. So that's why he got onto us and said, why don't we do an open letter to the Prime Minister? It's not an original idea. It was led by the British Medical Journal, who did a very similar thing, trying to get onto David Cameron to shake him up a bit. Yes. So that's okay. We don't mind imitating if there's a good example set. So that's what we did.
Has there been a response from the Prime Minister?
Not that I've noticed.
I think seen it in print
well, that's true. It's certainly been online, and now it's on print. In print, maybe we'll hear some. I mean, seriously, I don't know the extent to which he would be swayed by this, but it does give some courage to people who've been saying to us privately that it seems a great pity that Australia, in hosting the G20, doesn't appear to be taking the matter of climate change and health and economics, the three sort of sides of the triangle, seriously. And there's another article we've got in there, which is an interview with Jeff Sachs, who's the director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University, very famous, done a heap of work on poverty and health. Now, a staunch advocate of taking sustainability seriously, and an element in sustainability clearly is what we're doing to the environment. And so Jeff Sachs did an interview with me and says some fairly electrifying things about Australian media, which I leave it to the readers to read for themselves. But it's a serious argument to say that if climate change increases by another couple of degrees centigrade, then there are irretrievable changes, like the melting of the Arctic ice and the release of methane from the permafrost, which set up a vicious cycle. Yes. It's a bit like a nuclear reactor where it sort of grinds along and then reaches critical. Yes. And Jeff's point is that we are awfully close to going critical. So it's a different angle, but it's an incredibly important one. And it comes from a man who's got huge credibility in addressing poverty, HIV and all the rest of it in the developing world. He was the chair of a WHO committee on macroeconomics and health in 2010-11. Marvellous report that showed seriously, unless you invest in AIDS and TB and malaria prevention, you're never going to lift less developed, least developed countries out of poverty. And that was taken very seriously and people responded. So now he's on about the next thing, which is sustainability and climate change.
Good. Now, the other big issue in this edition of the MJA is cervical cancer screening. We've got quite a bit on that.
Yes, it's always a controversial thing. I mean, forever, as long as I can remember, people have been debating how frequently it should be done.
Yes.
The point of the articles in this issue of the MJA, though, is that simply because we've got an HPV vaccine now, doesn't eliminate the need for cervical screening, because not everybody will be covered by that, and the extent to which HPV vaccine removes the risk of any cancer, we'll only know on the basis of continued screening.
Right.
So the argument is put quite firmly to say, come on, don't neglect having pap smears simply because we've got the new vaccine.
Yeah. All right. Sounds like a wide-ranging issue.
Yes, there's lots on women's health, children's health. There's a very interesting article on surrogacy, which is a hot topic, of course, and some disturbing insights that emerge from that. I mean, it's a very messy scene, I'd have to say.
It is.
And
we've got a podcast, of course, with Gab Kovacs from Monash IVF, and he talks a little about the situation at the moment with baby Gammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, that's I mean, that's a dreadful case, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Oh, yes.
It tends to be very haphazard because, people say, oh, this is illegal, so people go under the carpet.
Yep.
And the consequences of that are not happy.
No, indeed. All right. Thanks for your time, Steve. Sounds like another cracker.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.